the special meeting of the River Plantation MUD Board of Directors. It's 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, August 10th. First thing we want to address is I want to make a motion to limit comments to 3 minutes from not only the audience but the Board of Directors. We're going to keep it short because we don't want to be here 3 hours again. We're going to limit it to 3 minutes, and once you've spoken, that's it. Okay, we don't want 3 minutes, then 3 minutes, and 3 minutes for the same person. 3 minutes. Do I have a second for that motion?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, and I will say
Well, you don't have to say aye if you don't want to. You have a vote. You have a vote. Okay.
yeah, but let's get out and use against it.
All right. First item on the agenda are public comments, and we're going to go by order that you signed in. Bert Duke, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I'll make a comment briefly. I haven't gotten nearly involved as I should
Okay.
with the research. I do have some questions. I work for an engineering firm in Houston, Black and Veatch. So what I do for a living is proposals.
Okay.
So when I do look at the work that was done, you know, it leads me with a lot of questions. Number one, I've been doing engineering work for over 20 years. I've never in my life seen a scope that was this large that was bid by one company. Okay?
But they're not bidding the work. They're the engineering firm for the MUD.
Okay, and
They will not, they're not doing any of the work.
Okay,
They're
so.
just overseeing.
Probably the construction work.
Right, the construction work.
Right, but you will be the owner's engineer?
There are engineers, yes.
So they are the sole source engineering firm?
Correct,
Okay, so that I was unaware of.
correct.
I think obviously that's a bigger issue than what being solved here. But
Okay.
you have a whole separate conversation about that, the logic of that, but okay. So there is questions here. The other thing I would see is, you know, priority, I don't have a problem.
First of all, that plan is from one person. That is not the board's proposal.
Okay,
Well, I should say, it's one of the proposals on the agenda for
okay,
us to vote on.
okay. So, yeah, because there is a disconnect between this and this and, you know,
That's
these other
correct.
things.
That's correct.
So, quick review of it. I do see probably the 3.5 looks to be like the high priority stuff. But, you know, I would.
For about 2 years.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe
right,
a year.
Right, right.
Then
So-
you're gonna have to come back for another bond election.
Right, right. So, my question has always been, where did the number come from? And what was the validity of the number? Was it cross-checked by other firms? And I've already talked to y'all, and y'all know I'm not
Okay.
saying anything.
Okay.
It's not an attack. This is one professional to another from the way I'm required to do it, my job.
What I would suggest you do is go out to the RPMUD.com website, download the packet of the engineers' proposals, because that was by one individual.
Okay,
So download theirs, that's what we're going off of.
okay.
And that's not the actual numbers, that's their estimates
Right.
of what it will cost. We haven't bid anything.
Correct.
Right.
It's
Correct.
projected useful lives
Right.
and all
Right.
that kind of stuff. Just so everyone's clear on the process, the bond authorization is only to allow for the issuance of bonds, right? So if the voters approve, you know, $10 million in bonds, that doesn't mean that the district issues $10 million in bonds, right? So we get the voter authorization, then we go through an application and approval process with the TCEQ,
Okay.
where we actually submit a bunch of information about the district, the scope of work, plans and specifications.
Timers.
If I was on the presidential debate, I'd say I'd get his time back.
It was 23 seconds, so, yeah.
I'm trying to get this thing to quit.
I understand,
Yeah.
that's the limit of my
Yeah.
questions, my comments.
Correct.
The others, I really don't have any comments right now on the funding question. Mine was all about the scope
Sure.
and the cost, because without understanding all that and agreeing with it, You
Right.
can't really have an intelligent conversation on what you should be asking for.
Correct.
So,
So the other thing is, just because we choose to go for a bond election for X number of dollars, whatever that amount may be, if it's approved, doesn't mean we're going to issue all of those at one time. They will be issued as needed. Right now, this community has some severe needs, okay? 15 million will not be issued all at one time,
so is there any financial hit to us for that 15 million?
not until we,
About the
Issue.
15.
Do I
Only
understand
the
it's like
amount
a
that's
line of
issued.
credit?
yes,
You don't pay for it if you don't use it.
Okay.
correct.
Do we lose our ability to maybe get a lower interest rate?
You know, you can
No,
go out and
it's-
refinance the debt,
yeah.
and right now, we're kind
It's
of in
as low as it's
historical
gonna be.
Yeah.
lows.
Okay, right,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. All right, I won't take up any more time, I'll be respectful.
Thank
I'll
you.
give the
That's
23
fine.
seconds back.
Thank you.
I'm good 3 minutes, I'm good.
Jeff, hey, Mr. Duke, Jeff wants
Come
to,
back here a second.
all right. Georgiana and Phil Woodrick.
That would be me.
Okay.
And I just want to say, I'm aware of all the problems we have out here and how much there is. I've lived out here 35 years. And I don't know why we have such a problem with issuing a larger bond. Because again, if you don't use it, you don't pay for it.
Correct.
And I think if we're trying to do it a different way, where we get the money each month by raising taxes and doing the whatever it is
Yeah.
that others are talking about doing, it'll take us a long time to do that. And if other things come up that we have to fix, how are we gonna fix it?
Correct.
It's just, this seems to me an urgent need for, and I think instead of going through another bond election, paying another $12,000 to $25,000 to do that, that's a waste of money. That's just total money down the drain. So I don't know why we wouldn't go ahead and do a larger amount and be prepared for anything that comes up. That's just my comment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McElroy.
I have an option here. I don't think the board has considered other options necessarily, other than how much money can
The
the
board has
community
considered
approve.
several options.
And so I think from a standpoint of having a financial analyst who is not part of the team, who has no skin in the game, could come up with some options for us. And what I've attempted to do is present to this community another option. And that is a $3.5 million bond, and how you do a tax increase. True, you're limited to the revenue increase of 3 to 3.5%, but you as voters can vote to have another increase in your taxes separate and apart from that. And that's what I proposed here, which is equivalent to what that bond rate would be that you would want to pay for at $15 million.
Isn't
And
that
so-
another
That would be, no, it would be, so what I'm proposing is you have two options. You go to the ballot box, you vote for A or B, or if the board comes up with another option, we want 25 million, put that on the ballot, A, B, or C. Okay? And or none, and let the community decide which ones we want, because the board, I think in the interest of the board's unity, that's what's important, you pointed that out, I think that would be satisfied. You would have a 5-0 board presenting this plan. And this is my effort to put that together. Now, I won't say I'm a financial analyst, but I've run through the numbers, I've looked at the compounded interest, and if you buy, you spend money, you borrow money, you're gonna pay $19 million that's not gonna go in the ground in terms of doing the work, because you're paying interest at 5%. And if anybody remembers the early 80s when we had inflation, I know a guy, he says, I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna go buy $1 million worth of these 10 and 12% municipal bonds, and I don't ever have to fill out a tax form again. And that was what he did. And so if we have inflation, they've already said the Fed rate's going to increase the taxes. So when you issue different series each time, you have to go to the market and pay the interest that time. Right now it's low, but we're unrated. So you're not going to get the bottom number. You'll get a higher number. And so the financial analysts thought 5% would be a reasonable number to come up with. But potentially, if you look 5 years down the road, when you want another series, you could be paying a lot more in interest,
And that's what I said,
therefore a higher rate. And so that's what I'm proposing here. If you take it out of your tax rate, out of your taxes and pay now, pay cash. At the end of 11 years, you've done all the work, you've done the work that's defined, and you paid cash, and you don't have to deal. And you still have your line of credit to use in the event that you do have to use it. So that's my plan here, $3.5 million. The other thing I really haven't discussed is the order of work. I know that the wastewater treatment plant is at the top of the list, for which we're responsible for 59%. In East Plantation District, we're going to have to get 41% out of them. So how are we going to get that 41% out of them when they're not willing? So that's the order of execution I think needs to be looked at. I hope you do later on. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
May I ask him a question real quick that doesn't kind of get my time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Go ahead. I'm
Give
sorry.
it short.
With your tax, the tax rate increase, are you talking about increasing every year up to the already allowed amount?
No.
Or are you talking about?
This is,
requesting
in other
more?
words, if you get a bond, you'll be paying, and you get the full amount of that money. You may not get it all at once. You get it over time, but in the end, you're going to pay 62.25%, 62.25 on $100. I propose in here 50 cents on $100 for 11 years. And with the $3.5 million, that's going to be another about 24 cents added to your tax rate. So there will be a tax burden. I'm not denying
24
that,
cents per
but it's
$100.
cash, is what I'm saying. You pay money and you get it done, and you don't have to deal with the TCEQ and the Attorney General and all that lead time it's going to take. They don't tell you it's going to take 6 months for them to submit their request and come back and say approve it. We have flexibility to move where the action happens, and we're not tied to what's on that bond definition. So that's my plan. That's where I look at it. I think offering the community that option on the
Okay.
ballot box will let you
Okay.
community stuff.
All right, Jamie Beck, your time.
Well, is there any comments back? Did you,
It's not legal to include the propositions on the ballot in that way, those combined,
And
planned propositions.
Second of all, if we put one, do nothing, how are we gonna pay for everything? If you've been to meetings, you realize our financial situation. The next event that happens, we won't be able to pay for it. So whether it's at your house or her house or someone else's house, you're gonna have a problem because we don't have any money to pay for it. So,
I'd like the council to state the statute or look it up and put that in the minutes
Okay.
for what he quoted, because we want to make sure that's what's true. I mean, it's true, I just want to know, see what the statute.
It's guidance from the Attorney General's office, so.
okay.
But still, it's not a statute yet, we don't have a guide, we don't have guidance, so.
Okay.
I would wonder, how about 11 years, or is our M&O tax going to drop? I've
Yeah,
never
it
seen
would be
one
up
go
to,
down after.
it would end, you'd have a defined period of time and it would end. Unless the
Only
voters
if you had a
remove it.
fiscally responsible board.
Well, that's
till then.
true, the same thing with the bond.
That's correct. That's
In any
correct.
case, and we're not paying $19
Okay,
million.
all right, Jamie Beck, you're next. Your 3
Thank
minutes.
you. Quick question for you. So with the whole tax rate increase thing, we're only allowed to go up a certain amount every year without having to go to court, correct? Like without having to go get a
Without
legal
elections.
authorization to raise it higher?
Right, so
So we could be told no if we went that route.
Right, a 3.5% increase in the tax bill on an average homestead in the district
All you
is
can
what's
do,
called
yeah.
the voter approval rate in the district. And so if you want to levy higher than that, you have to have just that, voter approval. So if you want to increase the cap, you have to have one election, and then to levy up to that cap, you would then have to have a subsequent election.
So we would potentially have to be doing elections on the regular if we went that route.
That's correct.
You would
With the
have a
cost
minimum
associated with
of
it.
2 elections, assuming that they were both successful.
And every time we
And how
do
much is an
that,
election?
every time we do that, it's at least $12,000 or more.
Just to the county, correct.
It's regularly scheduled in May
Just,
also.
it doesn't matter, we still have a share of the cost, and the cost is between 10 and 15,000.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up. As far as the rest of my time goes, I don't really have any other questions. I just want to say that as a homeowner here, a newly acquired homeowner, because I haven't been here long, but I have had time now to go through and look. We do have a lot of issues here. We have a lot of things that need to be fixed. I've actually gotten to see a lot of them now, like firsthand. With that in mind, I was completely and totally against the $25 million bond, but I think everybody in this room knows that. With that being said, though, the only reason was is because the numbers kind of freak everybody out, freaked me out, freaked everybody out. Now, and even still now, I would still vote against that. However, I'm not unreasonable. And so as a homeowner here, I do think we need to do something. I don't know if I really agree with the tax rate increase, only because that makes me nervous that we may not get it. I think our bond is, or right now, our problems, they went from 6 point something, the last vote thing, to now it's like 7 something million is what they're saying our estimated costs are. So I would say if we're gonna go for anything at all, we need to at least have enough money to take care of everything that's wrong, and then some, because there's always fuzzies. Fuzzies pop up, and they're gonna happen no matter what you do, they're gonna break ground and something else is gonna be wrong. So I'm still a little uncomfortable with, say, 15, but I would say we definitely need to be somewhere between 10 and 15, and you guys would get a yes out of me.
So what's the rules about asking somebody who talked a question? Because we're not asking.
Could you do it outside or outside the meeting? Okay. And I skipped D. I'm sorry, I
Oh.
didn't see the yes next to your name, so
Are we-
I apologize.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, timing. Okay, Davis, I've got my question for you.
Sure.
Because last week, when I asked how much a bond election cost, you were telling me about $11,000 to $12,000. However, there's attorney's fees, there's engineering fees, there's the financial guy fees, there are TCEQ fees. I mean, these are expensive to do a bond election. So you don't want to do this often. You want to get all your money and then, because otherwise, for all the money we'd be spending on a bond election, we could be fixing some of the stuff that's broken here. So, can you work on that?
I think I said, and I can go back, but I thought I said maybe closer to 20, but I wasn't sure of
No,
the
you
exact
were-
number. I think we talked about 12 as the cost from the county, but not including the other expenses. Typically, we tell our clients somewhere around 25,000 for a contested election for budgetary purposes. Here, there's obviously been more, just with all the meetings and everything.
it's been expensive.
It's been more involved. So I think if that's helpful.
Okay.
So.
Okay, for that being said, I'm for as much as we can get on a bond election.
Are you done?
Oh, what was the
You still
dean?
have time.
That wasn't me.
That wasn't you.
Oh.
I just turned yours off though. I thought you were-
Oh, okay, no, I just think we ought to go for as much as we can, because it's expensive to do these, and, people are gonna get tired of them too. But I think we need the money, let's get the work done, because nothing's been done for all these years, and that's why we've got this problem. Okay, that's it.
That's it?
Yep.
All right, last one on the list is Carl.
I'd just like to say that I think the reason the bond failed last election is because it was so much, and you were asking for more than what was needed. People get scared of that. 33%. The people that I talked to, that was the number one reason why people voted no against that, is because you're asking for more than you need. I understand theoretically and hopefully practically, if you get all that money, you have it, and you save the $25,000 for going back to it again. But when you look at how governments work, and this is a government agency, nobody likes giving extra money to the government. So what we'd like to see as the constituents is exactly where the money is going to go. And if one of those things is, well, maybe something else will come up, you're going to get voted down again. I really believe that.
But look what's happened over the years,
I
something
understand
pops up
that,
and.
but there's a psychological issue with the way you run these. And the other problem with the last election was, the way that it was presented was not good. We couldn't read what was on the screens, there were no handouts given out before then. It was very hard to follow for anybody to follow, even though it was great that you got everybody there. Without the detail for people to go into, it's not gonna work. There are a lot of people that don't come to this meeting that talk to me about this kind of stuff, and I'm relaying that to you.
So have you told them the details are all on the website in the packets?
Yeah, it is now. Last time,
Okay.
I couldn't find it.
Right.
It's still confusing.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it may have been there, but I couldn't find it, not very tech savvy, so I don't know what happened there. But it needs to be exactly where the money's gonna go, not this. If you put on there, contingency money on that, people are gonna get scared. It's fine to have a couple $100,000 for that. When you're talking about millions of dollars, then people get scared because it's a government agency with extra money and it's too easy to spend. That's the mindset.
It's
of
not
the
easy to
organization.
spend because it has to be approved by the TCEQ. Yes, it's not, it doesn't go into our operating budget.
I understand.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that money bond money does not go into our operating account for us to spend on anything other than capital projects, and it goes into a special account. So,
But the psychologically, what the constituents will see is, it's a lot easier to spend it if you have it. If you have to work harder to get more, or be very constrained in your spending, then we're more likely to get more bang for our buck.
okay. Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the list.
I think we had one show up
Oh,
after
you
Simon.
want-
Do you wanna
you wanna make a
make
comment?
I did vote no last election.
Tell us your
Michael
name just to get
Rebar.
on the record. Okay.
I did vote no for the last election, coming into it, knowing I was voting yes. And again, it was the way it was presented, and the $9 million extra dollars compared to what you had on paper for wanting it. And I'm all for a total repair. We need it. There's no denying it. I don't think anyone in River Plantation feels that way, We all want this resolved. And if you come at us, and I haven't been able to review the paper, but I'm seeing $15 million. And the first one, you were quoting 16 mil. So you're close at the original bid of getting the work done that has to be done. And I think we're set up for success this time instead of shooting ourselves in the foot. And I'm excited
Good,
to see this new revision.
good. Thank you. You
Kudos.
still got 2 minutes.
That's all I got. You don't want me to talk about my feelings.
Okay.
I do think it very much helps that it's on the
Total
website.
amount that the engineers.
Yeah, all the
have-
recordings
Yeah.
of all the meetings are too.
Yeah, which wasn't there we couldn't find that like he said before, so it helps a lot.
Okay.
What's the total amount in the engineers have for the total?
15 something
I know it's about 7 million for the first 3 or 4 years.
years, correct.
That's just to fix what we already know
It doesn't
about.
have a grand total.
Oh,
It's 7-something million is what it was.
well, that was for the first couple of years.
Yeah, first 4
Yeah.
years, I think. But that's only the things that we know about today.
Correct.
We haven't televised anything yet.
Right. Only, and I'll give you want me to give my percents of what I spit out last time? My percent is, we've only televised 1% of the lines in River Plantation. And since the beginning that we know of, the work we know of that's happened, we've only CIPP'd less than 14% of the lines in River Plantation.
Can you say what
And-
CIPP is?
CIPP is, tell me what the name of it is, but it's where they,
Place.
yeah, it's where they line the pipes,
They put a hard shell, hard place inside.
yeah. And less than 14% of the piping has been CIPP'd, and most of these pipes are more than 55 years old. So,
Does anybody know what the purpose of the televising, or they have a question about that, what we're talking about? That's basically just so everybody knows, that's when we run cameras down the pipes to find out where the problems are that we don't know about. They're underground, we can't see except when they make sinkholes. Yeah.
yeah, when they
Those
become
we
big
can see.
problems.
But what else is down there that we don't know about?
I have a question.
There may be pipes that are the same age that have not deteriorated at all, or deteriorated to the point that we've seen now. Yet there are other pipes that are much older in their deterioration than they should have. So they're all the same age. Some have just not deteriorated as much as others.
How would you go about doing the ditches and culverts, since that's not part of the engineering plan?
Actually, some of the ditches are
Well,
part of
it
the
has a
engineering
footnote on
plan.
it has a footnote on their plan, number 2. You look at it, it says that's not included.
The roadside ditches are actually.
Well, yeah, the ditches in your front yard are not included, those are county. Those are county.
You said you work with the county, and I didn't know how much of it's engineering work versus just their coordination.
That's all county
County
work.
does
The
all the
ditches in
open
your front
ditches.
yard are
Are all of
county.
them county?
The Mosswood, yes, the Mosswood ditches and the ditch here that FEMA has agreed to pay for part of it. Those are our ditches, east ditch, whatever. Those are part of ours, and that work will be done. As of right now, the way the east ditch has to be repaired, FEMA has agreed to pay for some of it, but we have to pay for it, then they will reimburse us.
So,
We don't have the money to pay for it.
So the county will work on the ditches even on the non-county roads, because we only got the
They're
2 roads.
pretty much all county roads now.
Yeah, I was gonna say they've adopted most of them, I
They've
think.
adopted a lot of the roads.
Okay.
Yeah,
As they've gone along, they've adopted the roads. After they've repaved them,
right.
they've taken over ownership.
And unfortunately, even if they haven't adopted it, it's not ours if it's an open ditch.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying you haven't televised the pipes yet, right?
We've televised, just in the last month, we've televised less than 1%.
Right.
We have no record of any of them ever being televised prior to that.
Right, so now I had that like freaks me out because
Yeah,
you're
should.
looking for $15,000, $15 million, whatever. You could get in those pipes and it could be a total, excuse my language, shit show.
Yep.
And need 20 or more thousand
You
dollars
got it.
just for that. Or it could be in not half bad shape and maybe we don't need as much, but like, how
Well,
can we even?
Taylor, you wanna
want
tell her about the 1% that you did televise?
The 1% showed that there were some joint separations, there was 2 joint separations, several large
The
sags.
1% is we got.
That's correct.
but you got the CIPP proposal that's included, does that get all the pipes?
Most of it.
Proposed for 75%. So.
How do you eliminate the 25? What's it?
On a district basis age, it's just purely based off of kind of our experience in doing older districts.
And
So-
some of it was done 2
So-
years ago, 3 years
so
ago.
in other
Everyone's
words-
clear.
We do 40 muds.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
just our experience of
Okay.
what we see in muds of this age with this type of pipe.
So to address her concern, even though we haven't televised, camered it,
That's
or
correct.
scoped down
Yes.
it, the proposal already has 75% of them to be done.
That's
Correct.
And
So-
then there could be another 25% that are a disaster once you get into it.
Typically in our
But we don't probably
history,
have the money to
once you
do
get
that.
such a majority
Right.
done, the district is back on track in
So
collecting
that's what-
operations taxes and the water service fee that went up, that you've now created some amount of money that you can start doing smaller repairs. So we're just trying to knock
Yeah,
out
well,
the block
that's
of it.
depending on smaller repairs. If it's a total disaster, then you got an issue.
Well, right now,
That's- Yeah, and you're not gonna see it because it's underground.
Right,
And
that's
until
what
we
I'm
get in
saying,
there.
until it's been
You'll
That's
see
looked
correct.
at with the
televising
camera or
storm,
whatever, you don't really know what
That's
you're
correct.
doing.
Priority 1 project.
Right.
You have to do
Correct.
that before you
What did
can.
they say? They said, at the last meeting, we said we had, what,
116,000.
116,000 linear square foot, and out of, since 63, only 14,000.
14% of it, yeah.
Have ever been looked
Yeah,
at.
so we don't really know what we're feeling.
So, what there would be a per foot price or per 100-foot price for CIP?
per linear foot.
So we could turn
And
around.
those are publicly bid projects.
So we could turn around and say, we want to do 100%. The price would be that, if that was a decision we wanted to.
If we
If it
needed
was
to.
necessary,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
doubtful.
I,
that
I
it
understand
needs to be
it,
done.
but I'm just trying to assuage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything you wanna say?
No,
Do you
I'm
have
good.
anything you wanna say?
Yeah, I can, I'd like to give you an update from my view. I've been on the board now since, what was it, December?
November.
Something,
November.
something like that. And when I first came on this board, I told everybody what I'd try to do is to take care of the Charleston thing and take care of the drainage. Charleston thing, I'm not gonna go into, but it's going well. We're happy with where it's going. It's just slow, but it's looking very good. Should be hopefully completed by the first quarter of next year. Can't say much more than that. Beyond that, we're trying to take this drainage issue into place, but other things have popped up. One of the first things I found out after being on the board was this board has been operating in a deficit budget every month to the tune of about an average of $16,000 a month. Okay, you can't run your house on a deficit budget. It doesn't work. Therefore, we did the rate increases, which have not, well, they're long overdue. I think Richard would agree with that. But they were long overdue. Coincidentally, the amount of those increases that we just have starting would come to approximately $16,000 a month, which means now that issue should be behind us. Okay, this district should now be able to pay its own expenses every month out of the operating budget without having to draw off something else. It shouldn't be going into C&I. That's what we're talking about on the other side here. But we should be able to pay all of our bills and start rebuilding our reserves with that money. Okay?
We don't have room to break for anything to break.
Huh?
I said, we
That's
don't have
correct.
room for anything to break.
So
That's
that's
correct.
where we are on that. I'm happy that we're getting that leveled off. Now, the next piece of the puzzle is the drainage that we said we wanted to do. And I've got my own ideas of where it should be, and I understand what people like Carl's saying, we shouldn't have extras, but the problem is we don't know what's extra and what's not. And the cost of these bond elections could be as much as $25,000 every time we have to do it. Maybe as low as what, 15 maybe? $15,000 to $25,000 every time we have to redo one of these. So we've already spent, based on those numbers, close to $50,000 just talking about it since the last one and this one, since last April. I don't want to keep wasting money like that. All of your savings went down the tube redoing these damned elections, and I apologize for saying that, but that's true. So here's what I'm thinking is going on. If we get a bond election authorized tonight, that will be more, it's going to be more than what we know we have to have right now to fix it. My thoughts are, based on looking at
For the next
engineers.
couple of years.
Huh?
For more than what we need for the next 2 or 3
Yeah.
years.
Well, based on what I'm looking at the engineer's proposal, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we had, if we could monetize roughly $7 million in funds to start with, that would give us enough money to start trucks running in and out of here within 2 years and fixing basically the things that we know are wrong now. Okay, but it doesn't allow us to fix anything else. Okay, is that basically a good assumption, what I'm
That's
saying?
about correct, about the first 5 years is about.
But I'd like to see it go faster than 5 years. Once we get it done, I'd like to see it go on a fast track, to be quite honest with you. Get the televising done on all the piping, figure out where our problems are. And while that's going on, as we identify some, we start people fixing them. Get that out of the way. That first $7 million is going to be gone within 2 or 3 years. But what happens at that point, as far as I can see it, is our infrastructure will be back on a standard that it should be on. Not a 50-year-old decaying infrastructure, but it would be repaired at that point. So you have your infrastructure based back up, you have your monthly operating fees covered. This district should be on the road to recovery with no problems. Okay? You know, if you have anything, I hesitate to use the word but catastrophic, but I think we're going to find more problems than we know. And it's going to cost us more than that in the long run. But we don't have to do that today. So we have to have a number. My number would be somewhere between 10 and 15 million is where I think the bond should be. But we're going to talk about it. We've got to figure out what's a good number for everybody. So that's where I'm coming from. But I think we're to the edge. If we do the right thing tonight, we can have this district back on a good platform going forward and fixing our entire neighborhood. Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. I'll make my comments and it's going to be very short. I think 15 million is too little. I've seen firsthand, I've been out here when things have happened. I've seen when things happen, you have one thing happen, then the next, right down the road, you have another thing happen, and it's like the Entergy deal with the wiring the other day. You fix one, the next one go, and it's just continuous. And I think, unfortunately, because of the flooding problems we've had, and that's unfortunately where some of the problems have been recently, is in the flood areas. Because of those areas, it has weakened or destabilized the piping, and I think we're gonna end up having problems like that. The other thing is I know personally the person who installed most of the piping in here as a college student, who told me that the piping that was installed here was all experimental, and they don't even use it anymore, okay? The other thing is, and I'll be more than happy to give you his name if you want it. The other thing is, where was I going with that? Anyway, I forgot where I was going. But anyway, I honestly think 15 million's too little. What you're gonna have to do is, as residents of RP, as homeowners, you will have to elect fiscally responsible boards to ensure that they spend the money on what they're supposed to be, what needs to be done. That's why we've started having the attorneys at every meeting. That's why we've started having the engineers at every meeting. Go back and ask the previous engineers, how many meetings did they attend? You want me to tell you how many they attended? I'll tell you, because Mr. Blisle called me and told me. They were forbidden to attend any meetings, okay? How do you know what's happening in the district if you're not allowed to attend the meetings? Okay? That's why they're here every meeting, either on the phone, which now we're gonna have to start meeting in person. So one of them will be here every meeting, so will the attorneys, okay? It's money well spent to make sure we're doing things the right way, okay? So, anyway, I don't believe 15 million's enough, but that's where I'm at, so.
Heck of a good start.
I know that this
It's a good start. It is a very good start. It is. It will get us down the road, and then we hope that somebody, the board, a few years from now, continues it and sees what's happening.
Well, I hope
So.
the other things we won't need anymore once we get everything caught up.
Yep.
So I have a question, it's not a comment. So as far as the amount, is that simply something that is decided by the board?
Yes.
And
And then you,
And that'll be what you put on the bond for
Correct.
election,
yes.
so
and then
it's,
you either say yes or
so
no.
if it's not right,
If it's not right, then you
Then
don't
they-
get, then nothing can break.
I know.
Because we have no money. And just because our fiscal year ends in October doesn't mean somebody walks up and hands us a bag of money and says, here you go, start this year. We have to wait for the property tax money to come in January and February.
Yeah. 'cause
Can I ask another question just for clarification?
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Uh,
Robert, did you get to ask your second question?
Oh, I would ask a question of when would you expect that money to be in the treasury, in the bank, if you went with a bond? What's the
Probably
delay?
May or June next year. Let's see, wait, no, because it would be the
No, it
November
would
election,
take
right?
like 9
So,
months.
yeah, it'll probably be summer.
Oh, for a, yeah. I mean, it would just depend
I had to
on,
think what
on
month
how
this was.
on how we schedule projects and design and all that kind
And
of
I mean,
stuff.
for the
but-
first bond issue, whatever it's set at, so
Yeah.
it could be for $5 million for the first bond issue.
Right.
It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be.
We could break it up. This is really just to give us the authorization, give the district the authorization to be able to go out
forward.
and submit the application. Each time an application is submitted, the board actually goes through and evaluates each of the individual projects to be included in the application. If
So
that's-
then you have a kickoff party then.
Are you
Sir,
paying
you've
for
been-
it?
You've been very patient back there.
If you're paying
We don't
for
want to
it,
spend more money like that.
I was just gonna say one thing, if it breaks, don't call them,
don't call who?
y'all.
Yeah,
Say, my pipe out front's broke, well, I don't have no money.
yeah,
So what
That's
happens in the
honest.
interim before bonds are issued and we have those funds and we have a catastrophic loss?
Lots of prayers.
yeah.
You know, the bond failed in May. It's not funny, haha, but it's funny that after the bond failed in May, within weeks, there were 2 major breakages of the sewer system that had to be bypassed and repaired and put back to normal. So we don't know when the next break is gonna happen. We don't know what part of the subdivision is gonna happen. We don't know any of those details. But it's not a question of if there's gonna be another break, it's when and where, and hopefully it's not on your street.
So
Or your house.
if it does break, if we have another $400,000 or $500,000 repair bill, how is that paid? How do we do that? Before the bonds?
Call Biden. Get
Yeah,
some of
we're-
his
And
Well-
before you
infrastructure
can
money.
increase everybody's rates.
We
you know,
would
because
have
that
to
takes a
do an
couple months.
emergency assessment
Yep.
of some sort. Yeah.
If everybody goes, yes, this is good, and we have a meeting of the minds, like tonight, okay, we're gonna do this. Approximately, how long is it gonna take for trucks to start rolling in, digging things up and getting this show on the road? And also, all right, let's say we start with $10 million, just to make a nice even number. Approximately how much is it? How much is it gonna cost about, you know, I'm not gonna hold you a penny, per household? So that at least like people have an idea of what this is gonna cost them and you can plan accordingly versus you're
It
sitting
was
there.
30-some cents
No,
per household.
I think Tim actually
27?
called
Okay.
Lauren, the financial advisor, today, and I think they were looking at 26 or 27 cents.
27.4 cents per thousand,
Per hundred.
per hundred. Sorry, my bad.
Per hundred.
Per $100 of your
Tax-
valuation,
tax-
yeah, your appraised value.
And
Yeah,
that's-
well, the appraised
that's-
value out here, they do taxes way different, because back east where I come from, if your house is worth $100,000, they only tax you on 70% because they got a 45% mill rate, so, you know,
Oh.
you get that.
Well-
I'm looking at the taxing, I'm like, I'm calling a friend of mine, really, I'm
Well,
like,
make sure you have a homestead
You
exemption.
get your homestead
I
exemption
did,
and
I
or
did.
or your
but
senior
I was like,
exemption
this
or
looks like
or what have you.
taxing me on the whole
Yeah.
Gilmer.
And that's why we had to actually lower our tax rate this year, because the appraised values went up so
Well,
much
that's the way
that
it
we had to
works.
actually lower our tax rate.
Yeah, well, that's the way it works. You either
Yeah.
have a high mill rate and a low house price, or a high house price. I mean, Greenwich, Connecticut has an 11 mill rate, which is
Yeah.
nothing in Connecticut, but you can't buy a dog house for under $500,000.
Yeah.
I believe, if I remember correctly, during the last bond election, we were talking about a similar amount of money, maybe $7 million original funding. And I believe we'd figured out, our financial people had figured that it would roughly be $600 in property taxes per year per house, if I recall right. And that's not gonna be an exact number, but it's
I
close.
think it's roughly 1/4%, right?
Yeah.
So a 25-cent rate would be 1/4% on of the taxable value.
I've been running from Connecticut to get away from taxes. You guys are killing me.
So what you're saying is the numbers you're quoting, the 27 cent, is based on the 7.5 million that we would draw down immediately for the repairs?
It depends on how much gets drawn down the first time.
Well, yeah, but he's just using a hypothetical number.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to have a basis for your 27
Yeah,
cents.
it would be on that amount of money, not the total bond.
Right,
Right.
that's the
On
question
what you
I'm
bought.
having.
Correct.
And
Yes.
so the financial advisor looks out, obviously, you know, projecting rates
Right.
and all that stuff, and that's the estimated
So
tax
follow-up
rate.
question to that. The engineering firm in the booklet, they have $7.5 million worth of repairs that they've identified.
That was, I think that was, I don't know what booklet are you talking about?
Her booklet, your
What
booklet.
about my vote?
It says $7.5 million in it.
Yeah,
Is that
so
Tim's
that's for
proposal
the-
from last
No, that's for
time?
the 6-year projection that the engineers did.
Okay.
Okay,
7.5 million, and then, I guess, so is that?
Oh, yeah, that was,
That's what I'm
that was,
asking.
that was.
That's
Tim's-
probably mine.
That was Tim's.
That's probably mine.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out between the 7.5 and the 15. Are we just doubling it, or?
No, it's because, go ahead, tell me.
This is a large printout that I got from the engineers. It's very similar to what was online. I started doing a PowerPoint merely to show pictures of what every line item was gonna be. And there's only so much time there was before the last meeting. I got to $7.5 million over 6 years.
Okay.
And that included a lot of sewage work, a lot of drainage work. It included a lot of different things, but it wasn't complete. But at that point, that's what I submitted was $7.5 million for the first 6 years.
I guess a better question I'm asking, we have $15 million of identified work that needs to be done?
That's correct.
Yes,
Easily,
yes.
easily.
And for clarification,
In your improvement plan.
me?
Oh,
For
go ahead.
clarification, just for everybody, if you don't use the money, as the money sits there, say you get 15 million, you only use 7, you have to pinpoint what you're using that for. It's got to be approved. It's not like you can go take this money and use it for, whatever. the
Buy a
case-
new tractor.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
if we decide.
So,
But it's
I
approved
just
by-
want it to be clear that you can't just go use that for
But
anything.
approved by whom?
He's
TC.
gonna tell
The
you.
voters, but I will say that the proposition will be the same as the last one, right? It is, the bonds will be limited to water, sewer, and drainage improvements to benefit this district.
No,
So,
no, no. If we give you a bond for $15 million, but we only spend 7.5, because that's what we identify as being critical need right now.
Right.
How does the other 7.5, because going back to his point, we're all nervous about giving government extra $7.5 million that they can, we don't
Use
want.
it as a please.
Right.
And I want to
Use
make
as a
sure
please.
everybody's
Right.
clear that they can't use it for anything other than.
water, sewer, drainage
Yeah.
improvements.
Right,
If it's
right,
never issued, it eventually goes away, because they.
Right.
That
And-
didn't
and
go away, it
plans-
stays there for 40
It has to be approved by the TCEQ,
Start with the board.
which starts
Yeah,
with
that's
us.
true.
When we say, okay, we're gonna fix Brandon Road,
Right.
we're gonna do 500 feet on Brandon Road, and it's gonna cost $1 million. We submit that to the TCEQ,
I'm sorry, who is the TE?
Texas Council on.
Texas
Texas Commission on Environmental
Environmental
Quality.
Quality.
They regulate all the water, sewer, and drainage in the
It's
state.
the environmental.
It's a red tape
Yeah, it's
machine. So,
Right, okay,
so we submit that we're gonna do 500 feet on Brandon Road,
right,
and it's gonna cost $1 million.
right.
They sign off on it. The
Okay.
Attorney General's office then has to sign off on it.
Okay,
And then it comes back to us and they say, go sell your bonds.
okay, and then you can sell your bonds.
Right,
Right.
Okay.
yes.
And as part of the application process, those funds are actually restricted to the specific project purpose.
Okay.
And so if we submit an application to the TCQ and we say, we want to do $1 million in sanitary sewer rehabilitation, right?
Right.
And during the project, we realize, well, we only need to spend 500,000.
Right,
We go back to the TCEQ and make a change to the project scope or
Right.
plan and take those funds and apply them to
Right.
another,
you have to amend the
but
project
only
plan.
a district water, sewer, or drainage project.
Okay.
On the last page of the annual report, audit report, it shows that the board still has bonding authority for, I think, about $1 million.
I don't think so anymore.
No.
It
It
expired.
didn't indicate it was used up, that's why.
The district has issued bonds previously,
Yeah, I know.
but actually the SBA and exclusion deal that we negotiated with Conroe to exclude the land invalidated the district's remaining bond authority, which was about $2 million.
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks for that answer.
Sure.
At what point would we find out who the bond issuers are gonna be? Like,
So the district would be the issuer, but we would receive public bids
Well, the public, yeah, for the public.
for the bonds. So the financial advisor would, there's
RVC
publication
stuff.
requirements and everything, but
And
they
y'all will
would,
publish all that
oh yeah.
on the website, or?
We will,
We
the,
can't.
the,
It's RBC
the offering
is
document
who's-
and everything will be absolutely public. It's a kind of a, I
Yeah.
don't know, 60-page disclosure document with all sorts of information about the district and projects and all that kind of stuff. And if they would take it to market, and then there are, a number of buyers, specifically of mud bonds. There are, call it 1,000 mud district bond issues in the state of Texas every year. So there's a pretty well-established market for this type
But
of
that'll happen
debt.
ahead of time to where we could, all look at it if we wanted to. Like, if we, say we wanted to purchase them.
You
Right.
have to go through your broker.
Yeah.
Right,
It's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And they're sold in a block of it's the entire issue,
Yeah.
right? So it would be, $7.5 million.
Kind of like if you've ever tried to get on an IPO, you gotta find the broker that bought that, didn't get in on
Yeah,
it
but
that
they'll be
way.
available on the public
Yeah.
market, certainly, so.
Denise, you had a question?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't put anything down when I signed in. So the infrastructure is unknown throughout the whole entire neighborhood. We're doing the camera to go in and take a look at it. But, you know, for the most part, we've been talking about monies here. I want to talk about infrastructure, because the infrastructure is what's going to, you know, ride that money.
Right.
So, are we looking at Band-Aiding these replacements? Or are these small fractures within the line? Or are we going to do replacement, do it the right way, not go in and just fix something for a temporary need? That temporary need may last 2 years, it may last 4 years. But are we going to do Band-Aid our infrastructure, or are we going to go in and replace the infrastructure and fix it the right way?
So you guys want to talk about the
worst thing I can
replacement?
do as an engineer is come in and band-aid something that I may have to deal with again in 5 years. Because you all are gonna be here in 5 years, and I like to create a personal relationship with you guys and stay around for a long time. I don't wanna do things twice. I want it done right the first time. CIPP is a standard, industry standard that lasts infinite amount of time. We don't
It
even
literally creates a new pipe within the existing pipe.
Correct.
Replacement of sanitary, you start adding times 10 or more to prices. And the damage you do trying to dig up and replace a sanitary, that's why they created these trenchless repairs. CIP.
That's what I was gonna say. It's not gonna be replaced. This CIPP is actually better than replacing it. You start replacing it, now you're digging up everything all over creation.
Now, we are gonna fix certain issues where CIPP may not be possible. So if you have a large offset, the pipe would no longer flow, we would dig down, repair that section, and then CIPP the line all the way through. So it's one continuous pipe at this point. It no longer has joints to shift around.
And if there's a pipe that's collapsed,
there
you
you go.
can't CIP.
Right.
Very good.
And this is what it turns into.
This would be inside of the other pipe.
Side of the other side, yeah. So it's
As long as the outer pipe has any type of integrity whatsoever, you just put that in.
And actually, if you've got some voids in it, you can CIP through that even. It doesn't have to be completely perfect. but-
Just like he said, if it's
Richard's got
completely
swatches in
fractured,
it.
you can't just.
I hope he didn't
Now,
put
is
this
that
out of an actual
corrosion?
sanitary. He handed it to me. I think it's been rolling around in the garage a little bit. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so corrosion is our problem.
Not corrosion. The
Concrete. Right.
It's truss pipe, and so it has a gap on it with little trusses inside of it. And since y'all's district floods heavily, it causes the grounds to swell and shrink, which causes the soils to shift. And when you have these pipes that have fixed points, if one shifts up and the other one shifts down, you cause breaks. And so that's what's happening, plus the static ground pressure pushing on this pipe over time, it doesn't have what we call a hoop strength as well, and it starts to smush the pipe as well.
And what Julie was talking about earlier when she was talking about the pipe, this is ABS truss pipe in the 70s and the early 80s was thought to be the miracle pipe that was going to last forever. It turned out to be very brittle, and so you have some longitudinal cracks. If it wasn't backfilled properly, you'd have some issues. All around Harris County, districts that were built in the 70s and 80s or even a little before having the same problem where the sanitary is having to be lined.
We got sidetracked on the money, but I had also asked if everybody says, yeah, let's do this and signs off tonight, approximately when is the work gonna start?
Probably next summer,
All right.
I would
so-
say at the earliest.
So if the stuff hits the fan between now
Yeah.
and then what?
Then, well, we hope the property tax money we get in January and February, we hope it's not more than that, so.
No, all right.
So, which we've got to start looking at the budget for this coming year too,
So this would go, we're talking about a bond that would go on the November ballot?
Yes.
Yes.
We're not, so it wouldn't be a special election between
No.
now and
No, we can only have elections on uniform election days. So we had one in May on the uniform date, and the next one is in November.
I have one other question, and I think I'm correct in this. In a bond, if you don't, I'm sure there's a time limit, a term limit on that issuance of a bonds.
That if you don't use them within so many years?
Yeah, right.
Yes, that's
Then
correct.
You're not charged for the bond,
Correct.
Correct.
correct? So it's better to have more than less, than need more and have less.
That,
Unless you wanna spend another 15, 20,000.
It's like a parachute.
It's just a credit line.
Better to have one and
I
not
have a
need it
credit
than
line
to need
in
it
my
and not
bank,
have
but I
it.
don't use it
right.
unless you go spend it again.
Right, so generally what districts do is vote a little bit of authority in excess of what their
Right.
immediate needs are. Or they'll do it based on a capital improvements plan, which is, you know, the kind of basis for the prior number, so.
Did you want to make a statement for the one?
Will the board be unanimous this time in recommending the amount on the board?
I don't want to,
We
don't know
don't know
yet.
until we vote.
That was a
We
big
don't
issue
know.
last time.
And we have two members missing, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
So they
can't
don't
really
vote?
answer that, but I know
No,
that,
they don't vote. if they're
I
not
know
here.
that at least 4 of the members have said that they think we need a bond issue. The only question has been the amount
How much?
of the bond issue.
Right.
I'm not sure what Director Robbins is, I can't remember him ever saying one way or another.
I understood, Mark, when we had the conversation, he's obviously, you know, doing his simulator training and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff right now. I understood Mark to say that he supported the issuance
Okay.
of bonds.
Well, in that case, we have,
If it was a
we have
But
a
it was a
unanimous
reasonable amount.
support
He
of
was
the
in
bond,
favor
it's
of
just a
a
question of
a
the amount.
reduced
I think we had that last time, but
Yeah,
the
that's-
amount,
that's-
right?
Yeah.
That's still a big open issue. I think we've, you know, most of us have come to the conclusion we need a bond. Question is how much?
Right, exactly. That's
And we
what
don't
we're-
want to go through what we went through
That's
before.
what
Well,
we're here
I
to
was
do.
one of the ones that
Right.
voted no for the reasons stated over here about overage.
Right. Well,
So-
and here's the other thing. Do you want to keep coming back every 2 years and doing this again?
No, I want to
And
be
that's-
sufficient to get, you know, I'm one of those, I'm just, nobody asked, that I would, based on what I'm hearing, I would support 15. Because we've identified a need for 15.
Right.
I'm still against having just extra.
Right.
Because, you know,
So-
banks will still be there in the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we.
Yeah, but the board just considers the order calling the bond election, and we just need to specify a par amount to be included in the proposition, so.
All right.
Is there any other comments that we have?
I'm
done.
good.
What's the process? How do you decide what number you're gonna,
We're fixing to do
We're
it.
fixing to do it. You're
You're
fixing to see
working on
it.
in front of us, not
Yep.
in private? Okay.
Yep.
Was there any recommendations? I mean, you've made yours.
I've made mine. I don't think 15's
You got
enough,
any
but
input?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm in favor of what the engineers have come up with at $15 million.
what do you want?
Almost enough. I said earlier that I would support anything from 10 to 15, thinking that that's the right number. So it
So
sounds to me like.
somebody make a motion
we're-
for 15.
We're ready to do a motion. You agree? If that's
I
the
make a
case-
motion that we approve a bond,
The order calling the bond election.
the order calling the bond election for November for $15 million for improvements to the MUD district infrastructure,
Water, sewer, and drainage.
water, sewer, and drainage.
I would second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Bingo.
Okay.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
motion made to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
I'd like to thank all of you for coming and
Yeah,
all that.
thank you guys.
Well, that's 3 hours.